Hello everybody and welcome back for the final video of 2018.
Oops, missed it by that much.
I have 2019 written on my notes because these are the books I want to read in 2019. So, welcome back to the last video of 2018. And now, let's talk about my TBR list for 2019. Obviously, I only have like 10 books written on here. This is not a complete list, but I was kind of brainstorming like what I really wanted to, like the books I really wanted to get to in 2019, and I don't want to pigeonhole myself and be like, I have my whole list of all the books I'm going to read in 2019, and then if I come across something that sounds interesting, there's just no space. So I didn't want to plan too far in advance, but these are ones, a lot of them are like continuations of series and that sort of a thing. So let's get started. These are in no particular order. They were just the order I happened to think of them in. So the first one is A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. I can actually say her name. Hold on. Sabaa Tahir. I don't know why I struggled with that. So this is the third and final book in the An Ember in the Ashes series. The problem is these books are really, like, the plot is pretty complicated, and I read the first two books like a couple of years ago, and I have absolutely no idea what happened. Like, none. So I'm going to either have to find a really in-depth review, or not review, but like synopsis of what happened, or I'm going to have to reread the first two books. So this one is like a threefer because I'm probably going to end up rereading the first two books in the series in order to be able to read the third book in the series. So we'll see. The next one, nobody's going to be surprised by because I've mentioned this a few times, but it's The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, which is the new book that's coming out in the Inheritance Cycle world. So this is I was talking about how I'm currently reading the Inheritance Cycle in order to prepare for this book coming out. And so the premise of this one is that it's like it's supposed to be a year after the last book ended. And it's kind of like, now that the world has kind of started to rebalance itself, like, what are all of our heroes doing now, sort of a thing, from what I understand. So, I don't know that it's like completely necessary to reread the whole series, but I wanted to, and I haven't, like, I wouldn't even remember who all the characters were if I didn't. I mean, this is definitely something where I could just do like a synopsis and probably call it good, but you know, I really enjoyed these books for the most part. I was a little disappointed by the ending, and by a little, I mean I was very disappointed by the ending. But we'll see if I feel that way now. I'm kind of curious. It might be one of those things where like I've built it up in my head to be so terrible, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, that actually was not bad at all. We'll see, because it's been, I think, 7 years since the last one came out. I looked it up for a video before, and I'm pretty sure that's what I had said was 7 years. So it's been a long time. So I am also still only on the first book of the series. I'm only like halfway through. So this TBR is going to include the next 3 books in the series as well. So it's like a fourfer. We had a 3-fer and a 4-fer, you guys. This is why I didn't do like a really extensive, comprehensive TBR list, because one book leads to a bunch of others, and anyway. Okay, so the next one is I really want to continue the Mistborn series, and not just the Mistborn series, but I wanted to continue on with the Cosmere world. The books in the set in the Cosmere. I'm not actually sure how the phrasing of that should be, because I don't know if it's like the Cosmere world or the Cosmere is the anyway, you get what I'm saying. So The Final Empire was my first Brandon Sanderson book I've ever read, and he is kind of a lot famous, and it's for someone who's super into fantasy, it's kind of shameful that I've only read one of his books. So I was watching The Peruse Project with Reagan. I'll link her channel below. She's really fun too. And she's super into Brandon Sanderson, like super into Brandon Sanderson. And she did a reading vlog a couple weeks ago where she finished Bands of Mourning, which is, I think, now don't quote me on this, I think it's, so the Mistborn world is going to have 3 trilogies in it that are like their own stories but set in the same world. And I think Bands of Mourning is the second one in the 3rd trilogy. And she finished it during that reading vlog and just went on and on about how it completely blew her mind and was truly amazing. So now I'm like, okay, only have like 9 books to read, almost 8 books to read till I get there. So I really wanted to work through the Cosmere to get to that because her reaction was so intense. I'm really interested to see how that book goes. So here's like a 9 for guys. So apparently by the time I'm done with this list, I will actually have reached my 60 books that I want to read for 2019. It's all just going to be like the 9 books on this list or whatever is going to end up spiraling out of control into like 60 books. Okay. So the next 2 are legitimately standalone ones. So Arch Enemies is the second book in the Renegades. I don't know if it's going to be a duology or a trilogy or like a whole series. I don't know. I read Renegades and was very underwhelmed, like super underwhelmed. But the very, very end, there's this crazy twist and you're like, wait, what?
Oh, there's a twist.
Another IT crowd quote. Oh, the other one didn't get recorded. That was when we weren't recording. And by we, I mean me. Yeah, so I have hope that the first book was maybe underwhelming just because it was like really focusing on setup and the rest of them are going to be good. So I'm willing to give Arch Enemies a try. It's a book that if I get like 100 pages in and I am like, bleh, I'm not going to finish it because I was very underwhelmed by the first book. But I'm giving the author the benefit of the doubt because I liked her other series so much. So we shall see. Now, on kind of the same line of thought is, so the author of Arch Enemies is Marissa Meyer. She wrote the Lunar Chronicles, which I've never actually done a video on, but I've mentioned several times. I really enjoyed them. She also has a standalone book that's a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and it might be from the perspective of the Queen of Hearts. I'm not really sure, but it's called Heartless. And I've heard it's really good. Somehow when I was doing like a big Marissa Meyer kick, I missed that book. Like I don't know. So it is definitely on my to be read list for 2019. I'd really like to get to it because I really enjoyed, like I said, the Lunar Chronicles. Now, the next one is kind of, I think I wrote this down before I read one of the books. So I wrote DC Icons ? So I read Wonder Woman, which is the first book in the DC Icons series, and it's by Leigh Bardugo, who she wrote the Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology, which were both really good. I, again, was very underwhelmed by Wonder Woman, which you're like, what? She's Wonder Woman. How can you be underwhelmed? It was just such a generic story that was like all about teenage interpersonal drama politics, basically. And then they like put some bells and whistles on that had to do with Wonder Woman. But like you could have basically taken her out of the story and inserted anybody else and it wouldn't really have changed the plot.
It's like Indiana Jones.
Yeah. We were rewatching the whole series of Big Bang Theory, and we hadn't watched the first few seasons, or really anything other before like season 7 or something in a long time. And at one point, Sheldon makes Amy watch Indiana Jones, and she's like, yeah, it was all right, except for the major plot hole. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, if you removed Indiana Jones from the scenario, it would have turned out exactly the same. He literally has no effect on how things turned out. And it, like, completely ruins it for him. And he brings it up with the rest of the group, and they're all like, no, that can't be. Oh, no, she's right. Yeah, so I kind of felt like that was the case with the Wonder Woman one. There's a Catwoman one that was written by Sarah J. Maas, who wrote the Throne of Glass series, and I really enjoyed those. So part of me is like, do I power through because maybe they get better? Or do I just call it good? Because there's a Batman one first that I think you have to read, because the order listed in Goodreads is Wonder Woman, Batman, Catwoman, and then Superman, I think. And I'm like, it probably makes sense to do Batman before Catwoman, but that means if I want to read Catwoman, I have to read 2 books instead of 1, and what if I don't end up enjoying it because I didn't really enjoy Wonder Woman? So these are my musings. I haven't decided for sure if I'm going to read it or not. It's kind of on there. Again, it's on there with a question mark. I might read some more reviews and see what other people think. Okay, and then this last one is, I have heard so many people talk about Victoria/V.E. Schwab. Some books she's on there as V.E. Schwab, and other books she's on there as Victoria Schwab. So,
she related to Les?
Les Schwab, yeah. I feel like I'm missing out by having never read any of her books. I don't know which one I'm going to start with. Probably Vicious, because I feel like that's probably her most famous book. But we'll see. I don't know if she's an author I'm going to like or not. The synopses I've heard of her books sound kind of interesting, but it's going to really depend on how she handles them. So, yeah, I'll probably start with Vicious. We'll see. And it's one of those where I'm just kind of testing the waters to see if I like it. And so if I get partway through and I'm like, her writing style and I do not mesh, I probably will put it down and just not finish. I just kind of want to see what the fuss is about, basically. Yeah. So lots of things to try out, lots of new things. There's several like continuations. So I think this year is going to be a good year with lots and lots of reading, hopefully. Lots of reading, lots of reading. All right, guys, what are you going to be reading next year? Let me know down below. I'm curious to see if there's, any books that you guys are super interested in, or you're just kind of like going to wing it. Like, what's the plan? What's the plan? Well, so I will see you next year. 2019. Crazy. But until then, happy reading. Get out here. My hair is just like, screw you, lady.
It didn't actually say that.
It did say that. You missed it.
Oh. Very much good.
Alright, that's all.